I was born on July 27th. That makes me a Leo. I don't really know what that means. I'm 5'6", I weigh 145 pounds, I don't know how to swim, and I'm a sucker for a girl with a nice smile and clean sneakers. I'm still learning how to whisper. I'm often loud in places where I should be quiet. I'm often quiet in places where I should be loud. I was born feet first, and I've been backwards ever since. I like ginger ale. A lot. I've been told that I give really bad hugs. People say it feels like I'm trying to escape. Sometimes it's because I am. Secretly, I get really nervous every time someone gets close enough to hear me breathe. I have this odd fascination with things like sandcastles and ice sculptures. I assume it's because I usually find myself dedicating time to things that will only last a few moments. That's also why I tend to fall in love with women who will never love me back. I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually much easier than it seems. And to be honest, I think it's safer that way. See, relationships, they often remind me that I'm not afraid of heights or falling, but I'm scared of what's gonna happen the moment that my body hits the ground. I'm clumsy. Yesterday, I tripped over my self-esteem. I landed on my pride, and it shattered like an iPhone with a broken face. Now, I can't even tell who's trying to give me a compliment. I've never been in the military, but I have this purple heart. I got it from beating myself up over things I can't fix. I know this sounds weird, but sometimes I wonder what my bed sheets say about me when I'm not around. I wonder what the curtains would do if they found out about all the things I've done behind their backs. I've got a hamper that's overflowing with really, really loud mistakes and a graveyard in my closet. I'm afraid that if I let you see my skeletons, you'll grind my bones into powder and get high on my fault lines. Hi. My name is Rudy. I enjoy frozen yogurt, people watching, and laughing for absolutely no reason at all. But I don't allow myself to cry as often as I need to. I have solar power confidence. I have a battery-operated smile. My hobbies include editing my life story, hiding behind metaphors, and trying to convince my shadow that I'm someone worth following. I don't know much, but I do know this. I know heaven is full of music. I know God listens to my heartbeat on his iPod. It reminds him that we still got work. The girl who works at Starbucks down the street from my house on Delmar Heights Road, swear to God, I'm not a stalker. That's the title. When I asked you for a chai latte, what I meant to say was, I was walking past, I saw you in the window. To be honest, I only came in here because I had to know what your voice sounded like. Instead of saying that, I got really nervous and ordered the first thing on the menu. I don't even know what chai is. Or a latte, for that matter. I imagine that when God made you, I bet he cussed for the first time. I bet he turned to an angel, gave him a high five, and said, "God damn, I'm good." Or "Me damn, I'm good," because he's like God, right? I spent the last 5 days trying to figure out how I'm going to introduce myself to you properly. I finally figured it out. It's going to be something like, hi. That's all I got so far. But I think it's a good start. I'm going to be honest. It's not often that I find myself eager to write about love. In fact, every time I try to write about love, my hands cramp. Just to show me how painful love can be. Sometimes my pencils break just to prove to me that every now and then, love takes a little more work than you planned. I heard that love is blind, so I write all my poems in Braille. And my poems are never actually finished because true love is endless. I've always believed that real love is kind of like a supermodel before she's airbrushed. It's pure and imperfect, just the way that God intended. I'm going to be honest, I'm not much of a love poet. But if I was to wake up tomorrow morning and decide that I was going to write about love, my first poem, it would be about you, about how I love you the same way I learned how to ride a bike. Scared, but reckless, with no training wheels or elbow pads so my scars can tell the story of how I fell for you. I'm going to be honest, I'm not much of a love poet, But if I was, I'd write about how I see your face in every cloud and your reflection in every window. You see, I've written a million poems, hoping that somehow, maybe some way you'll jump out of the page and be closer to me. You see, I'm not much of a love poet, but if I was, I'd write about how you have the audacity to be beautiful, even on days when everything around you is ugly. I'd write about your eyelashes and how they are like violin strings that play symphonies every time you blink. If I was a love poet, I'd write about how I melt in front of you like an ice sculpture every time I hear the vibration in your voice, and whenever I see your name on the caller ID, my heart plays hopscotch inside of my chest. It climbs onto my ribs like monkey bars, and I feel like a child all over again. And I know it's gonna sound weird, but sometimes I pray that God somehow turns you back into one of my ribs just so I would never have to spend an entire day without you. And I swear I'm usually not a love poet, but if I was to wake up tomorrow morning and decide that I was gonna write about love, my first poem, it would be about you. And after all of that, she was like, but how do you feel about me? And I said, put it like this. I want to be your ex-boyfriend's stuntman. I want to do everything he never had the courage to do. Like trust you. See, last night I had a dream. In this particular dream, I died in my dreams, awoke not knowing I was still asleep, and decided to walk. See, that night, I walked in my sleep. I slept in my walk. I walked backwards until I saw you for the first time, and I could barely muster the courage to introduce myself all over again. You see, I've been trying to find the right words. I've been trying to take the right steps for what seems to me like thousands of years, but something always seems to go wrong between us. We lived in Egypt. I was the Pharaoh's slave. You were his daughter. Loving you led to my death. They claimed I seduced you, and after they stole my life, I was resurrected as a mason. I made the foundation for your house. We met eyes for 2 seconds. You left and I didn't see you again until I died. I came back as a caterpillar. I turned into a butterfly. I landed in the palm of your hands. You brushed me away and the rejection killed me. When I woke, I was a kick drum. You were a snare. We were both owned by this drummer named Cozy Cole, and when he died, so did we, but I came back just to look for you. I left notes in random places, hoping that you would stumble across them. I carved our names in trees and then prayed that it would jog your memory. I whispered your name in the wind, hoping somehow, maybe some way, my voice would reach you, but it didn't, and I died. I died early. I died young with breadcrumbs in my hand, just hoping that you would find me, but you never did, so they buried me. When they buried me, they put these coins over my eyes, and I used them as bus fare to get back to earth just so I could look for you. That's why sometimes when we hold hands, every so often, I hold on a little too tight, and I'm sorry. I just don't want to lose you again. My mother told me, when you find the perfect woman, you got to do whatever it takes to make sure she stays next to you. Thank you. The following are true stories. May 26, 2003, Aaron Ralston was hiking. A boulder fell on his right hand. He waited 4 days. Then he amputated his own arm with a pocket knife. On New Year's Eve, a woman was bungee jumping in Zimbabwe. The cord broke. She then fell into a river and had to swim back to land in crocodile-infested waters with a broken collarbone. Claire Champlin was smashed in the face by a 5-pound watermelon being propelled by a slingshot. Matthew Brobus was hit by a javelin. David Striegel was punched in the mouth by a kangaroo. The most amazing part of these stories is when asked about the experience, they all smiled, shrugged, and said, I guess things could have been worse. So go ahead. Tell me that you're having a bad day. Tell me about the traffic. Tell me about your boss. Tell me about the job you've been trying to quit for the past 4 years. Tell me the morning is a townhouse burning to the ground. Tell me the snooze button is a fire extinguisher. Tell me the alarm clock stole the keys to your smile, drove it into 7 a.m. and the crash totaled your happiness. Tell me how blessed are we to have tragedy so small it can fit on the tips of our tongues. You see, when Evan lost his legs, he was speechless. When my cousin was assaulted, she didn't speak for 48 hours. When my uncle was murdered, we had to send out a search party to find my father's voice. Most people have no idea that tragedy and silence have the exact same address. When your day is a museum of disappointments hanging from events that were outside of your control. When you find yourself flailing in an ocean of why is this happening to me? When it feels like your guardian angel put in his 2-week notice 2 months ago and just decided not to tell you. When it feels like God is a babysitter that's always on the phone. When you get punched in the esophagus by a fistful of life. Remember that every year 2 million people die of dehydration. So it doesn't matter if the glass is half full or half empty. There's water in the cup. Drink that shit and stop complaining. You see, Muscle is created by repeatedly lifting things that have been designed to weigh us down. So when your shoulders feel heavy, stand up straight, lift your chin. Hell, call it exercise. Remember that life is a gym membership with a really complicated cancellation policy. Remember that you will survive. Remember, things could be worse. Remember, we are never, ever given anything that we can't handle. When the world crumbles around you, you have to look at the wreckage and then build a new one out of all the pieces that are still here. Remember, you are still here. The human heart beats approximately 4,000 times per hour, and each pulse, each throb, each palpitation is a trophy engraved with the words, "You are still alive. You are still alive." Act like it. I was told the average girl begins to plan her wedding at the age of 7. I was told that she picks the colors and the cake first. By the age of 10, she knows the time and the location. By 17, she's already chosen a gown and a maid of honor. By 22, she's waiting for a man who doesn't break out in hives when he hears the word commitment. Someone who doesn't smell like a Band-Aid drenched in lonely. Someone who is more than a temporary solution to the empty side of the bed. Someone who will hold her hand like it's the only one that he's ever seen. To be honest, I don't know what tuxedo I'll be wearing. I have no clue what my wedding will look like. But I imagine that the woman who pins my last name to hers will butterfly down the aisle like a 5-foot promise. I imagine that her smile will be so big that you will see it on Google Maps and know exactly where our wedding is being held. The woman that I plan to marry will have champagne in her walk, and I will get drunk on her footsteps. When the pastor asks me if I take this woman to be my wife, I will say yes before he even finishes the sentence. I'll apologize later for being impolite, but I will also explain to him that our first kiss happened 6 years ago, and I've been practicing my yes for the past 2,165 days. When people ask me about my wedding, I never really know what to say. When they ask me about my future wife, I always tell them that her eyes are the only Christmas lights that deserve to be seen all year long. I tell them that she has a walk that can make an atheist believe in God just long enough to say, "God damn, I tell them that if my alarm clock sounded like her voice, my snooze button would collect dust. I tell them that if she came in a bottle, I would drink her until my vision is blurry and my friends take away my keys. I tell them that if she was a book, I would memorize her table of contents. I would read her cover to cover, hoping to find typos just so we can both have something to work on, because aren't we all unfinished? Don't we all need editing? Aren't we all waiting to be read by someone praying they will tell us that we make sense? She don't always make sense, but I swear to God, her imperfections are the things I love about her the most. I don't know when I will be married. I don't know where I will be married, but I do know this. Whenever I'm asked to describe my future wife, I do so as best as I can. And every single time, she sounds a lot like you. Every single time, she sounds a lot like you.
And the article says the Mexican government confiscates approximately 30,000 illegal firearms per year. When the guns are taken, they get dismantled and the metal is used to make other types of weapons that will later be utilized by their military. In 2012, Pedro Reyes, an artist from Mexico City, convinced his government to donate the guns to him, and he turned them into musical instruments. So somewhere there's a tambourine, a drum set, a guitar, all made out of things that were used to take people's lives, but now they create a sound that puts life back into people's bodies, which is to say, a weapon will always be a weapon, but we choose how we fight the war. And from this, I learned that even the most destructive instruments can still create a melody worth dancing to, and sometimes, don't we also call that a battle? I wonder how long it took to convince the first rifle that it can hold a note instead of a bullet, but still fire into a crowd and make everyone move. When I was 6, I was taught how to throw a punch. In the 80s, that was the anti-bullying movement. The first time one of my classmates took a yo mama joke a little too far, I remembered my training, so I turned his nose into a fountain, my fist 5 pennies, I closed my eyes, I made a wish, I came home with bloody knuckles, and it was the first piece of artwork we hung on the fridge. I remember staring